The situation went from bad to worse for Admiral Vextar. What should have been a simple show of force had turned into something that looked like a comedy show. The humans seemed determined to treat the most feared military in the galaxy like street performers. Captain Lisa Park had decided to give running commentary on everything the Zalarian fleet did. She broadcast her thoughts on frequencies that the Empire considered holy and sacred. "Oh, look, they're moving into attack formation," she announced happily. "Very neat, very organized. It's like watching a really violent dance show." "Jake, are you recording this?" "Every second of it," Morrison replied from his ship. "I especially like how they all moved at exactly the same time. Must have taken years to practice. Very professional work." Park's ship, the Stubborn Mule, flew between two Zalarian destroyers while she kept talking. Notice how they keep their distance from each other. Good spacing. Safety first, even when you're trying to be threatening. Admiral Vextar gripped the arms of his command chair. These primitive creatures were giving a tactical analysis of his fleet movements like sports announcers describing a game. Worse, their analysis was accurate. "The big ships stay in the back," Park continued cheerfully. "Classic formation. Put your heavy hitters where they're safe and let the smaller ships do the dangerous work. Very traditional military thinking." "It's like they read the same textbook we did," Foster added from the Absolute Unit. Chapter 5, Basic Fleet Tactics. Very by-the-book approach. Rodriguez joined the discussion from the Cosmic Joke. "Think. They have the same textbook? Galactic Warfare for Dummies?" "Probably," Morrison said with a laugh. "Though I think our copy has more pictures. The human ability to turn serious military doctrine into casual conversation was breaking down Zalarian discipline. Several bridge officers were openly struggling not to react to the commentary. Admiral Vextar had reached his limit. He activated the fleet-wide communication system, putting every ounce of authority and menace into his voice. "Human vessels, you will cease these transmissions immediately and surrender, or we will demonstrate the true power of the Zalarian Empire." The response was immediate and devastating to Imperial dignity. All 4 human captains started making scared noises that were obviously fake. "Oh no," Park said in a voice like a frightened child. "The big scary admiral is using his mean voice. I'm so scared I might faint." "Me too," Morrison agreed with the same fake fear. "My knees are shaking so hard I can barely stand up." Foster made exaggerated, frightened gasps. "Did you hear how he said true power? That gave me chills. Real goosebumps." "I think I need to hide under my desk," Rodriguez added. "This is too scary for me." Then they all started laughing again, their genuine amusement cutting through the fake fear like a knife. Okay, Morrison said when the laughter died down. "Seriously, though, Empire folks, you've got the whole intimidation thing down to an art form. Very impressive delivery. Great use of dramatic pauses." "The voice work especially," Park agreed. "Deep commanding, really sells the authority angle. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. "What would make it 5 stars? Foster asked with obvious curiosity. "Maybe some background music," Park suggested. "Something dramatic. Really emphasize the moment." Admiral Vextar felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of military service. He felt ridiculous. These humans were reviewing his threats like entertainment critics. "Admiral," his communications officer said with barely controlled confusion, "the humans are now broadcasting something they call Imperial Fleet Bingo on our tactical frequencies." "What is bingo?" "Apparently it's a game where they predict what we will do next. They have made cards with different actions listed. When we do something, they mark it off their cards." Vextar looked at his tactical display. Sure enough, the HFY humans were sharing their bingo cards with each other over open channels. "Ooh, there's the classic encirclement move," Rodriguez announced happily. "That's square B7 on my card. Anyone else have that one?" "Got it," Morrison replied. "Still waiting for threatening ultimatum number 3 and dramatic weapon charging sequence." "They're charging weapons now," Foster observed helpfully. "Very dramatic. Lots of energy buildup. Great special effects. I give it an 8 out of 10 for showmanship. The fact that his fleet's movements had become a game for the humans was the final insult. Vexatar stood up from his command chair, his scaled skin flushed with anger. "All ships, prepare for immediate attack," he commanded. "Target the human vessels. Show them what happens when someone mocks the Zalarian Empire." The response from Captain Morrison carried a different tone than before, still relaxed, but with an edge underneath that hadn't been there earlier. "Well, folks, looks like playtime is over," Morrison said calmly. "All ships, this is Morrison. They want to play rough. Let's show them how humans play." What happened next broke every rule of space combat that Admiral Vextar knew. Instead of running away or forming defensive positions, the human ships scattered in completely random directions. Their movements followed no pattern that made sense. The defiant spirit dove straight toward the nearest Zalarian destroyer while Morrison's voice echoed across space. "Lisa, take the left side. Dan, punch through their middle. Sam, do that crazy thing you do." "Which crazy thing?" Rodriguez asked while his ship spun in impossible circles around a Zalarian cruiser. "The really stupid thing that shouldn't work but always does." "Oh, that thing. Starting maneuver stupid now." Captain Park's ship dove into the Zalarian formation, like a wild animal. But instead of fighting normally, she kept broadcasting analysis that was both accurate and insulting. "Okay, Empire guys, I hate to be critical, but your formation has more holes than Swiss cheese. See that gap between your second and third battleships? That's where I'm going to fly through while making spaceship noises." She did exactly what she said, her ship weaving between Zalarian vessels while she made sound effects that turned the maneuver into something ridiculous. Foster took a different approach. Instead of avoiding weapons fire, he flew straight toward it while commenting like a sports announcer. "Here comes another round of plasma shots, folks. Beautiful aim, excellent timing, really quality shooting from the Empire team. Of course, they're shooting where I was, not where I'm going, but you can't have everything." His ship danced through the weapons fire with impossible skill, making the Zalarian gunners look like beginners despite their years of training. Admiral Vextar watched his perfect fleet being torn apart by 4 ships whose crews treated space combat like performance art. Captain Sam Rodriguez was the one who truly broke Zalarian morale. His ship, the Cosmic Joke, began doing things that seemed to break the laws of physics while he broadcast educational lessons to anyone listening. "Today's lesson is about predictive targeting," he announced cheerfully, while his ship performed a barrel roll around a Zalarian missile. "The secret is to never be where your enemy thinks you are. For example, they think I'm here, but actually I'm here, and in 3 seconds I'll be over there, which should be impossible but keeps working anyway." His ship twisted through space in ways that made no sense. It moved up, down, and sideways all at the same time. The Zalarian computers couldn't calculate where it would be next because it seemed to ignore basic physics. "The key," Rodriguez continued, while dodging another volley of weapons fire, "is to confuse your enemy so much that they forget how to shoot straight. Works every time." Admiral Vextar watched his perfectly trained fleet being dismantled by 4 ships whose crews treated space battle like a game. His tactical officers' reports had become increasingly desperate. "Sir, the human ship's stubborn mule just flew backwards through our formation while playing something called circus music. Our gunners report they cannot maintain target lock because they are laughing too hard to concentrate." "Laughing?" Vextar couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Yes, sir. The humans keep doing things that are so absurd our crews lose focus on their duties. The Cosmic Joke just wrote the word hello in space using their exhaust trail while avoiding our missiles." Vextar realized with growing horror that his fleet wasn't being defeated by better technology or superior tactics. They were being defeated by humans who refused to take warfare seriously, turning every strategy he knew into entertainment. "All ships," he commanded in desperation, "fall back and regroup. We need a new approach." Morrison's voice followed them as they retreated. carrying, both sympathy and mockery in equal measure. Good effort, Empire folks. You really gave it your best shot. Maybe next time try being less predictable. Just a suggestion. Thanks for the exercise, though. Our pilots needed the practice. The Zalarian fleet regrouped at what they hoped was a safe distance. Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display showing 4 human ships continuing their patrol like nothing important had happened. Status report, he demanded, though he dreaded the answer. No ships destroyed, Sub-Admiral Kreshta reported, her voice carrying deep embarrassment. However, 17 vessels report minor damage from trying to hit randomly moving human ships. Also, crew morale is badly damaged. How badly damaged? The humans have been broadcasting detailed analysis of our combat performance. It's very accurate, very educational, and very insulting. Several junior officers are questioning basic principles of Imperial military doctrine. Vexatar accessed the human transmissions and immediately wished he hadn't. Captain Park was conducting what she called a post-battle review with the casual expertise of someone who had just solved an easy puzzle. The main problem with Empire strategy is that it depends entirely on fear, she explained happily, which works great against species that get scared, but falls apart completely when you meet someone who thinks your scary ships look like flying doorstops. Morrison joined the analysis with helpful advice. The formation flying is very pretty, but pretty doesn't win battles. Also, they telegraph their moves about 3 seconds before doing them. In human combat, 3 seconds might as well be 3 hours. Foster added his own observations. Plus, they assume everyone fights the same way they do. Very narrow thinking. They've probably never met a species that uses confuse the enemy until they give up as their main battle plan. The final blow came when Rodriguez broadcast what he called helpful tips for galactic empires. First tip, fear only works if your target is actually afraid. Second tip, having bigger ships doesn't matter if you can't hit anything with them. Third tip, maybe don't pick fights with species that think the whole concept of galactic empires is hilarious. Admiral Vextar realized he faced something completely new. The Zalarian Empire had never encountered a species that was immune to their primary weapons, fear and overwhelming force. These humans treated Imperial might like an elaborate joke, and worse, they were making the Empire look foolish to anyone. Monitoring the battle. Admiral, his communications officer reported reluctantly, we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want to know why we're having difficulty with 4 primitive ships. The humiliation was complete. Word of the Empire's struggles had already spread to other galactic powers, and they were asking questions that Vextar couldn't answer. How could he explain that his massive fleet had been defeated not by weapons or tactics, but by humans who simply refused to be intimidated? How could he report that his crews had been demoralized by enemy forces who treated them like a source of entertainment? Captain Morrison's voice cut through his dark thoughts with an offer that somehow managed to be generous and insulting at the same time. Hey, Admiral Big and Scary, this is Morrison. Look, we can tell you're having a rough day, so here's what we'll do. We'll continue on our way, you folks can go back to conquering whoever you normally conquer, and we'll all pretend this never happened. Sound fair? Park's voice joined in with a warning, disguised as friendly advice. However, if you really want a rematch, give us a few years to get our main fleet out here. Trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. We're just the advanced scouts. The implication hit Vextar like a physical blow. These 4 ships, which had just made his empire look ridiculous, were merely the beginning. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity was building a fleet that shared their immunity to intimidation and their talent for unconventional warfare. Foster added his own cheerful threat. Yeah, wait until you meet our Marines. They're even crazier than we are. Some of them actually enjoy getting shot at. And our engineers, Rodriguez chimed in. They build weapons that shouldn't work but do anyway. Very creative people, our engineers. Admiral Vextar made a decision that would echo through Imperial history. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the Zalarian Empire chose to withdraw rather than conquer. All ships, set course for Imperial space, he commanded quietly. Mark human territory as restricted space. Restricted, sir. Until further notice, all Imperial vessels will avoid human space. File it under unpredictable hazard. As the Zalarian fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Captain Morrison's final message followed them into the void. Safe travels, folks. Thanks for stopping by. Remember, next time you want to conquer someone, maybe try asking politely first. You'd be surprised how far good manners can get you. The Zalarian fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the 4 human ships alone in the empty void. Captain Jake Morrison leaned back in his command chair and took a long drink of his now cold coffee. Well, that was interesting, he said to his crew. Anyone want to bet they'll be back? Pete Collins, his navigation officer, shook his head. I don't think so, Captain. They looked pretty shaken up when they left. On the other human ships, similar conversations were taking place. Captain Lisa Park was reviewing the battle recordings, with her tactical officer pointing out the moments when the Zalarian formation had completely fallen apart. See right here, she said, freezing the display on a frame showing Zalarian ships scattered across space. This is when they realize their standard tactics don't work against people who think differently. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Bob Turner, nodded thoughtfully. They fight like they expect everyone to follow the same rules they do. Exactly. Very rigid thinking. Works great until you meet someone who doesn't know the rules or doesn't care about them. Commander Dan Foster was having a similar discussion on the Absolute Unit. His crew had gathered in the main lounge to watch replays of the battle, cheering every time they saw a Zalarian ship miss its target. The funniest part, said his weapons, Officer Chief Maria Santos, was when they tried to surround us. They moved so slowly and obviously that we had time to make popcorn before responding. Foster laughed. I think they were more surprised by our reaction than our tactics. They expected us to be afraid. Why would we be afraid? Asked his pilot, Lieutenant Steve Chen. They're just ships with people inside them. Big ships, sure, but still just ships. On the Cosmic Joke, Captain Sam Rodriguez was already planning improvements for next time. He believed in learning from every experience, even victories. The barrel roll around their missile worked perfectly, he told his engineer, Chief Tech Officer Jenny Wu. But I think we can do better. What if we spelled out entire sentences with our exhaust trail? Jenny grinned. We could write poetry, really confuse them. I like it. Make a note. Next alien empire we meet, we greet them with haikus written in rocket exhaust. Back on the Defiant Spirit, Morrison was composing his report to Earth Command. It would be the first official first contact report in human history, and he wanted to get it right. Personal log. Captain Jake Morrison. Earth date, April 15th. Today we made first contact with an alien species calling themselves the Zalarian Empire. Initial communications were unusual. He paused, trying to figure out how to explain what had happened in terms that wouldn't get him court-martialed. The aliens appeared to be a militaristic society that uses intimidation as their primary diplomatic tool. When this approach failed to achieve desired results, they attempted to use force. This also proved ineffective. That was probably the most diplomatic way to say they had laughed at the aliens until they ran away. Recommendation: future contact. With this species should proceed cautiously. While they appear militarily advanced, their tactical doctrine is inflexible and relies heavily on psychological warfare. They seem unprepared to deal with opponents who are immune to intimidation. Morrison saved the log and opened a channel to the other 3 ships. All captains, this is Morrison. Good work today, everyone. I think we just taught the galaxy an important lesson about humanity. What lesson is that? Park asked over the comm. That we don't scare easy, and we definitely don't surrender easy. Foster's voice joined the conversation. Think they'll warn other alien empires about us? Probably, Rodriguez answered. which might not be a bad thing. Save us time if the next empire knows not to bother with the intimidation routine. Morrison nodded even though the others couldn't see him. True, though I suspect some of them will want to test us anyway. Empires tend to be stubborn about things like that. As if summoned by his words, Karen Bell looked up from her communications station. Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the direction the aliens went. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Can you translate any of it? Some of it, sir. It appears to be a general warning to all Zalarian forces. Something about avoiding human space and classifying us as an unpredictable hazard. Morrison smiled. Unpredictable hazard. I like that. Has a nice ring to it. Over the next few hours, more transmissions reached them from across the galaxy. The news of humanity's first contact was spreading fast, and the reactions were varied. Some alien species seemed curious about the newcomers who had faced down the Zalarian Empire. Others appeared frightened by the implications. A few sounded amused by the whole situation. Captain, Karen reported after monitoring the transmissions, I think we're famous. Half the galaxy is talking about us. Good famous or bad famous? Both, sir. Some species are calling us heroes for standing up to the Zalarians. Others are calling us dangerous lunatics who don't understand proper galactic politics. Morrison considered this. Well, they're not entirely wrong about the lunatics part. As the human ships continued their patrol, more Earth vessels began arriving in the sector. Word had spread back to Earth about the first contact, and Starfleet Command was sending reinforcements. The first to arrive was the heavy cruiser New York, commanded by Captain Ruth Martinez. Her ship was bigger and more heavily armed than the original four, but her crew shared the same irreverent attitude toward authority. Jake, you magnificent crazy person! Martinez's voice crackled over the comm as her ship dropped out of hyperspace. I hear you made some new friends. Something like that, Morrison replied, though I think we scared them more than they scared us. Good. About time someone taught these galactic empires that humanity doesn't kneel to anyone. More ships followed. The New York. Within a week, a full human fleet patrolled the sector where first contact had occurred. The ships came from different nations on Earth, but they all shared the same message. Humanity had arrived in galactic politics, and they weren't interested in being anyone's subjects. The Zalarian Empire never returned to that sector of space. Admiral Vextar filed his report with Imperial High Command, recommending that humanity be classified as a restricted contact species. His superiors, reading between the lines of his carefully worded report, quietly agreed. Word spread throughout the galaxy that a new species had emerged from the outer rim. They called themselves humans, they had no respect for established authority, and they treated the galaxy's most feared empire like a minor inconvenience. Some species wanted to meet these audacious newcomers. Others preferred to avoid them entirely. All of them agreed on one thing. The galaxy had just become a much more interesting place. Captain Morrison, reviewing reports from across human space, smiled as he read message after message from alien governments requesting formal diplomatic contact. It seemed that standing up to bullies was good for humanity's reputation. Well, he said to his crew, looks like we're going to be busy. The galaxy wants to meet us. Think they're all as friendly as the Zalarians? Pete asked with a grin. Morrison laughed. I certainly hope not. Where would be the fun in that? Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES Liberty. The ship moved through space toward the outer rim of the galaxy. Jake had been a diplomat for 20 years. He knew how to talk to aliens and make deals between different species. Today felt like any other day until the emergency signal came through. Ben Rodriguez turned from his control panel. His face looked worried. Sir, we have an incoming transmission from the Zeltharian Empire. They say it's urgent and for all diplomatic vessels. Jake nodded. Put it on the main screen. The large screen at the front of the bridge lit up, the A. Image showed a massive stadium filled with thousands of alien beings. Jake recognized the place. It was the grand arena on the Zeltharian homeworld. But something was wrong. The beings in the stadium were not there to watch games or celebrations. Tall figure walked onto the platform in the center. Jake knew him right away. Emperor Vorthak of the Zeltharian Empire stood before the crowd. His gray skin and red eyes made him look like death itself. He wore his black uniform with gold trim that marked him as the ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Citizens of the galaxy, Vorthak's voice boomed through the speakers. Today you will witness justice. These criminals thought they could hide on the rebel world of Kepler 442b. They thought they could escape imperial law. They were wrong. The camera moved to show thousands of beings locked in cages around the arena floor. Men, women, and children from different alien species huddled together in fear. Some were crying. Others stared with empty eyes at the crowd above them. Jake felt his stomach turn cold. "This can't be happening," he said quietly. Dr. Lisa Carter walked onto the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. She looked at the screen, and her face went pale. "Jake, those are civilians. I can see families down there. Children." "We know these beings helped rebels fight against the Empire," Vorthak continued. "The punishment for helping rebels is death. Let this be a lesson to all who think they can stand against imperial power." Soldiers in dark armor began opening the cages. They used electric weapons to force the prisoners into lines. The beings moved slowly, knowing what was coming. Some of the children reached for their parents. The soldiers pushed them apart. Ben Rodriguez was recording everything. His hands shook as he worked the controls. "Sir, this is being broadcast to every system in the galaxy. They want everyone to see this." Jake watched as the first group of prisoners was led to a large machine at one end of the arena. It looked like a giant metal box with pipes coming out of it. The soldiers forced 10 beings inside and sealed the door. There was a loud hissing sound. When the door opened again, the beings were dead. "My God," Lisa whispered. "It's a gas chamber. They're using poison gas." The crowd in the stadium cheered. Some held signs that said things like "Death to Rebels" and "Long Live the Empire." They seemed to enjoy watching innocent beings die. Emperor Vorthak raised his hand, and the crowd went quiet. 50,000 criminals will die today. Each death makes the Empire stronger. Each death sends a message to those who would challenge our rule. Jake couldn't believe what he was seeing. In all his years as a diplomat, he had never witnessed anything so cruel. The Zeltharian Empire was known for being harsh, but this was beyond anything he thought possible. "Sir," Ben said, "I'm getting reports from other ships. Everyone is receiving this broadcast. The Empire is making sure the whole galaxy watches." Group after group of prisoners was led to the death machine. The process was slow and deliberate. The Empire wanted to drag out the fear and suffering. They wanted other beings to see what happened to those who opposed them. Lisa was analyzing the video, feet on her tablet. "Jake, look at this. Many of these beings aren't even from Kepler 442b. I'm seeing species from at least 12 different worlds. These are refugees who were seeking safety." "Refugees?" Jake asked. "Yes, people who escaped from other worlds the Empire conquered. They went to Kepler 442b because it was supposed to be neutral territory. But the Empire invaded it 3 months ago." Jake felt anger building inside him. These weren't soldiers or rebels. They were families who had already lost their homes once. Now they were being murdered for the crime of asking for help. The killing continued for hours. The Empire had built multiple death machines to speed up the process. The cameras showed everything in detail. They wanted viewers to see the fear in the victims' eyes. They wanted to show the power of the Empire over life and death. "This is a war crime," Jake said. "No, it's worse than that. This is genocide." Ben looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm intercepting other transmissions from Imperial ships. They're planning similar operations on 12 other worlds. They have lists of targets. Jake stood up from his chair. His mind was racing. The Zeltharian Empire was not just punishing rebels. They were trying to wipe out entire populations that might oppose them. They were using fear as a weapon against the whole galaxy. "Lisa, how many beings live on those 12 worlds?" he asked. She worked quickly on her tablet. "If they target the same populations they did here, we're looking at maybe 2 million beings. 2 million innocent lives." Jake had seen enough. The galaxy had governments and councils that were supposed to prevent things like this. But they were all afraid of the Zeltharian Empire. No one wanted to be the next target. The broadcast finally ended after 8 long hours. 50,000 beings were dead. Emperor Vorthak gave a final speech about the glory of the Empire and the fate of all who opposed it. Then the screen went dark. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Jake looked at his crew. They all had the same expression of shock and horror. "What do we do, sir?" Ben asked. Jake knew the smart thing would be to file a report and let someone else handle it. Humanity was still new to galactic politics. They didn't have the power to challenge an empire. But Jake also knew that sometimes doing the smart thing wasn't the same as doing the right thing. "Set course for Nexus Prime," he said. "I'm calling an emergency session of the Galactic Council." "Sir," Lisa said carefully, "the Council won't want to get involved. The Zeltharian Empire has too much power." "Then I'll make them get involved," Jake replied. 50,000 beings died today while the galaxy watched. If we don't do something now, 2 million more will die tomorrow. The UES Liberty changed course toward the neutral world where the Galactic Council met. Jake knew he was about to risk everything, but some things were worth the risk. The UES Liberty arrived at Nexus Prime 3 days after the broadcast. The planet was a gray world with no natural life. It had been chosen as neutral ground because no species wanted to claim it. Massive buildings rose from the surface, housing the Galactic Council and representatives from 47 different worlds. Jake Morrison walked through the council halls with Amy Sullivan at his side. Amy was young but smart. She had been working with smaller alien governments for 2 years. She knew which species might help them and which ones would hide from the fight. "The Andromedan Trade Federation is willing to listen," Amy said as they walked. "So are the crystalline people and the rock dwellers from Titan 7. But they're all scared of the Empire." "Scared or not, they need to hear what's happening," Jake replied. "If the Empire can kill 50,000 beings and broadcast it for fun, no one is safe." They entered the main council chamber. It was a huge round room with seats for all the different species. Each delegation had their own section with special air and gravity controls for their needs. The human section was small and near the back. Humanity was still new to galactic politics. Jake looked around the room. Many seats were empty. Word of what he planned to discuss had spread quickly. Some species didn't want to be there when he accused the Zeltharian Empire of war crimes. Chairman Flux walked to the center podium. He was a tall reptile being with green scales and yellow eyes. The Saurian Collective had been neutral in most conflicts for centuries. They liked to keep the peace, even when peace meant ignoring terrible things. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Jake Morrison of Earth," Flux said. His voice echoed in the large chamber. Jake stood and walked to the speaker's platform. He could feel dozens of alien eyes watching him. Some looked curious, others looked afraid. A few looked angry that he had dared to call this meeting. 3 days ago, the Zeltharian Empire broadcast the execution of 50,000 innocent beings, Jake began. They killed families. They killed children. They killed people whose only crime was asking for help. He activated the holographic display above the platform. Images from the broadcast filled the air. The council members could see the death machines, the crying families, the cheering crowds. Some aliens turned away. Others watched with hard expressions. "This was not justice," Jake continued. "This was murder. The Empire wants us all to be afraid." They want us to know that anyone who opposes them will die." A low murmur went through the chamber. Jake could hear different languages being spoken as the aliens talked among themselves. Some seemed upset by what they saw. Others seemed more concerned about what would happen to them if they spoke against the Empire. Chairman Flux raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador Morrison, the Zeltharian Empire claims these beings were rebels and criminals. Internal Imperial justice is not the concern of this council." "Internal justice?" Jake's voice rose. "They're planning to do this on 12 more worlds. 2 million beings will die. How is that internal?" Before Flux could answer, the chamber doors opened. Heavy footsteps echoed through the room. General Krex of the Zeltharian Empire entered with 20 armed soldiers. The general was even taller than Emperor Vorthok, with darker gray skin and scars across his face from many battles. The soldiers spread out around the chamber. Their weapons were not drawn, but everyone could see them. The message was clear. The Empire was not afraid of the Council or anyone in it. The Empire did not. "Request to speak," Chairman Flux said nervously. "The Empire does not request," General Krex replied. His voice was like grinding metal. "We take what we need." He looked directly at Jake. "Including the right to defend ourselves from human lies." General Krex walked to the center of the chamber. He was so large that Jake felt small standing near him. But Jake did not step back. He had seen too much to be scared now. "The beings who died were criminals," Krex said. "They helped rebels attack Imperial ships. They hid weapons and supplies. They taught rebel children to hate the Empire. Under Imperial law, the punishment for these crimes is death." "What about the children who were killed?" Jake asked. "What crimes did they commit?" "They were raised by criminals. They would have grown up to be criminals themselves. The Empire removes problems before they spread." Jake felt sick. The general was talking about murdering children like he was talking about removing weeds from a garden. "You're talking about genocide." "We are talking about order," Krex replied. "The galaxy has been peaceful for 200 years because the Empire maintains order. Weak species like yours benefit from this peace. You should be grateful, not spreading lies about war crimes." Amy Sullivan stood up in the human section. "We have proof that many of the victims were refugees. They weren't rebels. They were just trying to survive." General Krex turned his red eyes toward her. "Survival is earned, little human. Those who cannot serve the Empire do not deserve to live." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some aliens supported Krex's words. Others argued against them. The noise grew louder as different species took sides. Jake realized the council was breaking apart before his eyes. Chairman Flux pounded his gavel repeatedly. "Order! We will have order!" When the noise finally stopped, Jake knew he had lost. The council was too divided and too afraid to act. Half the members supported the Empire, out of fear. The other half wanted to help, but didn't dare speak up. General Krex smiled, showing sharp teeth. "As you can see, the council agrees with Imperial justice. This meeting is over." "No," Jake said loudly. "It's not over." Everyone turned to look at him. Jake took a deep breath. He was about to do something that would either save millions of lives or destroy humanity's place in the galaxy. "I invoke the ancient codes of justice," Jake announced. The chamber went completely silent. Even General Krex looked surprised. The ancient codes were laws from the early days of galactic civilization. They had not been used in over 1,000 years. Most beings had forgotten they existed. Chairman Flux checked his computer quickly. "The codes do still exist in galactic law," he said slowly. "Any species can demand trial by combat when accused of genocide." "Trial by combat?" Krex laughed. "You want to fight the Empire, little human?" "If that's what it takes to get justice for 50,000 dead beings, yes." General Krex stopped laughing. His eyes narrowed as he stared at Jake. "You would risk your entire species for aliens you don't even know?" We would risk everything to do what's right, Jake replied. The general was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see him thinking. The Empire could refuse the challenge, but that would bring automatic sanctions from the Council. It would make them look weak in front of the galaxy. Or they could accept and crush humanity, sending an even stronger message about imperial power. Very well, Krex said finally. The Empire accepts your challenge, but we will not fight by the old rules. This will be fleet against fleet. Winner takes all. What are the stakes? Chairman Flux asked. If humanity wins, the Empire faces Galactic. Justice for war crimes, Jake said. And if the Empire wins, Krex added with a cruel smile, humanity becomes property of the Empire. Your worlds, your ships, your people, everything. Jake felt the weight of what he had just done. He had bet the future of the human race on a single battle. But he thought about the children in those death machines. He thought about the 2 million beings who would die if nothing changed. Agreed, he said. General Krex nodded. The trial will take place in the Arcturus system in 30 days. Bring your best ships, human. You will need them. The general and his soldiers left the chamber. The alien delegates began talking excitedly among themselves. Jake stood alone at the podium, knowing he had just started a war that humanity might not survive. Amy Sullivan walked up to him. Jake, what have we done? The right thing, he replied. I hope,